Good morning, everybody. Sunday morning aquaponics update. It's been a week. Not a lot of glamorous stuff going on this week. Oops, sorry about the jiggle cams. So yeah, we'll do a quick tour, quick talk, let you know how things are going on with the system. So far, so good. I haven't done my water test for this week, but last numbers looked okay. Check the previous video. I was about halfway through the system cycling, and I bulked up the filtration, so that ought to be a non-issue. So yeah, let's take a quick walk and show you around. All right, so this is the bucket and bucket system I've showed you guys in the past. So I ran into hydroton is the problem here. So I've been still sort of rummaging through some old pots and stuff I've got to try and fill these up. I've got 2 bags of hydroton on order. Unfortunately, the local my local source isn't carrying it this year, so the shipping is kind of brutal. But there we have it. So I got a couple plants in here. They're just sitting. They're very water sensitive. So I've just Chris has just got the pots sitting in here so that the root mass stays damp while she gets herself organized and decides where she wants to plant that in her earth garden. So we've got stuff planted in the media bed, posted on Twitter and my blog site. A little update about this. So we have tomatoes here. Just one sec. Second variety of tomatoes. So these are a paste tomato. These are a slicing tomato. Some basil. A little bit of transplant shock there. This is sort of what the plants look like when I got them. I'm not really happy with the color of the leaves. But this is new growth since I put the plants in the system. Likewise, that is a new leaf. So I guess that's just the color. It looks weird to me, but yeah. And over here we have some pak choi, and again, that dark green leaf down there is new growth. So all these pak choi are showing some new growth. It's a nice dark green color. They came from the local nursery. They were root bound, underwatered, etc. The usual nursery woes. So scrubbed off the roots and dropped them in. So what we're doing is water is coming across here. That is one of my pop bottle siphons. So it's a 710 ml pop bottle I'm using as the bell upside down, and then the hose just runs in, and I've got the end of the hose well below pellet level, so I don't have to worry about algae or whatever on the surface getting slimy. Tank here still murky. That's because I poured some plankton, some phytoplankton extract into the water, and of course that means we have a plankton bloom. But I've also got a whole bunch of my duckweed has grown quite nicely. So that's, I mean, I know the nutrients are getting used. The duckweed is doubling at a rate of about every 4 days, not 2 days. So yeah. You can see I've got a couple of empty spots in the system. That's where the tomatoes were, moved them out there. Swiss chard, you can see we've got roots coming out from underneath. The Swiss chard's all nice and bushy. And this is one of the beans. And again, we've got root mass starting to come out from underneath the bottom of the cup. So this is all working well. None of the cucumbers, for whatever reason, survived, and I don't know why. Last year it grew like weeds. This year, not so much. Again, you can see some roots coming out from underneath the bottom of the chives. So the system's working. The plants are seeking, you know, I've got some more plants that have got to go in here, but I'm out of hydroton. I don't have anything to put them in, so right now that's just on hold. So yeah. Talk in a moment about some of the fancy plumbing, but generally, I mean, you've seen most of this last week. So the usual, water comes up, out, over, goes into this manifold, which I can use to throttle. It basically apply water pressure out to these tubes. This hose is I use for filling up, you know, things like my stock tank, or watering cans, whatever. I've got my filtration pack here. That's working really well. And then I've got this, the mad science experiment over here. Fish are still in the sump. That's going to change today, I think, which is why the stock tank is sitting over there full of water. The idea is I've got a screen and just make sure what does or doesn't fit through the screen. And we're going to relocate all the fish down into the fish tank, put them into there. The sump is with these two beds operational now. There's an awful lot of water comes out of that sump and sits in suspension. Oh, you can see there, siphon's running. So this is a siphon, right? And that's just a complicated loop siphon. So it drops water into there, and you can see the water bubbling up. So there's an awful lot of water that gets filled into this one and this one before it all flows back down there. So that sump tends to drop fairly low. So I think what I want to do is, as I say, is, oh, goodness, sorry, it's an early Sunday morning. Yeah, so what I want to do is move the fish. They've all gotten big enough now that if a little bit of precautionary, I can make it safe for them to go into the main fish tank. And that way, if the water level in the, basically I'm not worrying about running anybody high and dry in the sump tank, depending on what the water levels are doing. So that's that. It's looking good so far, honestly, folks. I'm pretty pleased. Let's talk about some of the fancy plumbing here. So this is, I've talked about doing a Trompe air pump. So I can't remember if I've done a video about this or not, but a real quick, just in case I haven't. So water comes up here and goes from 25 mil to a 50 mil. Which means that it opens up a lot, but so it creates a pressure drop. There is, this piece here has got a bushing, a 50 mil to 25 mil bushing, and there's a piece of 25 mil pipe that goes down to about there on this pipe. So as water flows past, it pulls air down that, a la Venturi, and then that flows along here, and it hits this branch. The air, which has been basically, well, the phrase I hear used is entrained. So as the air is entrained into the water, it gets dragged along here, and then of course bubbles want to rise, so they go up this piece of pipe. Now, because of the speed of water, not all the bubbles can go up that way, and so they'll get dragged a little bit further along until they hit that joint, and those will go up as well, and then all of that air flows back and forth until it hits this point, and if you crack that valve, it'll hiss. The problem is, oh, and the water, of course, now most of the air's out of it, just goes up here and peek around the corner. You'll see there's a little bit of plumbing work here. Around the other side. And that's what feeds the water going into the overhead pipe, which I'm going to plant with nasturtiums hopefully this week. And those will all kind of cover down over the trellis area, be a nice big curtain. And then that water comes back down and does the trip, right? So the problem is that it works. The problem, yeah, let me preface it. It does work. The problem is I need to run basically the entire volume of the water through my pump through that piece of line for it to generate enough air to be meaningful. So it's an interesting experiment, and if my pump were about twice the size, it would be okay. But like right now it's a 4,000 liter, 1,000 GPH, but because of lift, I'm down by about 1/3, and then I split that into two, and so the rate of flow going through that pipe, just not enough, which is unfortunate. I had some hopes. I had done some math and thought, this doesn't look good, but I built it anyway just to see. I mean, that's how you learn, right? It does work. Like I say, if I divert the entire flow of the system through that piece of pipe, I generate compressed air, and I stuck a balloon on it and blew a balloon up. So yeah, it works. But at the regular flow rate that I'm operating with, no, it does not, unfortunately. So hey, cool. However, it's an interesting lesson. We're planning on doing a pond and water feature out in the front yard later this summer, and my thought is I may recycle this pile of plumbing as the mechanism by which we create air for the pond, because there we're going to be in a position to have a dedicated high rate of flow pump running under a condition where we can tap the entire value of that flow. So yeah, it's a thing. So we'll probably it's not a dead project. It's just that for the purposes of what I'm doing, not enough flow rate yet. Okay, sure. The rest of the system, as I say, is going well. Stopped in at my local reef aquarium shack yesterday. So we're technically post-COVID here on PEI. You probably saw that eye roll. What that really means is that we haven't had a confirmed case of COVID for 2 months now. So the government is allowing businesses to reopen. Everyone's still obligated to do masks, social distancing, etc. Most people are ignoring those regulations, so we're just waiting for a bomb to go off. That's my take on it. But what that meant, however, is that I was able to go in. My sweetheart and I, we just put our we do masks and gloves, and sure we stand out, but better safe than sorry. So we went into the local reef aquarium store that we like. I picked up some potassium sulfate yesterday. I need to fortify the potassium levels in the water here, and the potassium sulfate is good because it acts as a pH down, and because of the amount of carbonates in the water here, that's good. There's an awful lot of pH buffering that comes out of the amount of carbonate in the water. So just simply doping the system with that additive will slowly edge the pH down. Because this system is seasonal, it only runs through 4 months, 5 months of a year, I never get to the condition where the system naturally acidifies. Plants naturally make the soil more acid. That is what they do because of the way they process the materials in the soil or in the media around their roots. They naturally make a more acid soil. Okay. So over time, the usual problem with an aquaponic system is the pH keeps dropping, and you keep having to add carbonates to it to soak up the acids. But here, there's so much carbonate in the water automatically that if I fill the system out of the well, which I do, yeah, it's hard to stay ahead of the game. So that's the chemistry stuff. Also picked up a couple of koi and a couple of pleco, what they call the bristle-nosed pleco. So yeah, that's so they went into the system yesterday. The koi, these are going to be full-size koi. They'll wind up, 30 to 45 centimeters long over time if we, as time goes by. I'm not planning on doing showfish with them. They're just going to be, whereas I say Christy's planning on doing a pond out in the front yard. Towards the end of the season, we'll probably bring those koi into the house, use one of the stock tanks as an indoor pond, let them winter there, and then in the spring they'll go out into the pond, I think is the plan. Next year I want to get back to doing trout with the aquaponics, so yeah. And the plecos, of course, are just good little vacuum cleaners for cleaning up algae and stuff that's growing on the sides of the tank. So the idea is the idea is for them to, for now, at least live in the sump tank and keep vacuuming up the sump tank for me. So that's the idea behind that purchase. A little treat, some cool fish to put in the system, and as I say, those will winter in the house as they grow up. I think that's it for today, folks. Next big deal for the aquaponics, as I say, I got 2 bags of hydroton that show up this Friday officially. Well, next Friday coming. And that will let me finish planting out the system and also finish setting up the downstairs aquaponics system. We have a waterfall style aquaponics in the basement. A couple of little mods need to be done to that yet, just to fix a couple of details. But the biggest single challenge I have with it right now is it just doesn't have enough hydrogen in it. So I need almost a hydrogen pellet in there and just don't have the material. So once the clay pellets show up, that'll fix a lot of the remaining issues. Get a bunch of stuff, bunch more stuff planted. As I say, I'm shopping for nasturtium seeds or seedlings. If I can find a cell pack that's already done, I'll just grab those and get those planted. That was just so fun to have those last year. But that's about it. This is the quiet part of aquaponics coming up for the next 3 weeks, where essentially all that's going to happen is that stuff's going to grow. If everything goes well, it's very quiet for the next little while. So keep track of my blog. I will post the odd little note and comment there as well. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Well, we'll probably see you next weekend, and if not, in 2 weeks with an update. It depends what changes. And yeah, we'll do updates as there's stuff to talk about. All right, take care of yourselves. Have fun. Please subscribe. Please follow. Also, please like. And lastly, but certainly not least, please comment. Let me know what you think. Ask questions, make suggestions. Love to hear from you. And post links to your own aquaponics systems if you got them. Doesn't matter how big or small. I'd love to hear from you. All the best. Take care of yourselves. I hope your gardens are booming. And we'll see you around. Bye-bye.